Never Going Back Again by Fleetwood Mac is not only a great song, but it contains some of the most inventive and original Travis picking you'll ever hear. It's also pretty difficult to play, so if you're new to guitar or just new to Travis picking, you might want to start with an easier riff like Landslide, which I have a tutorial for and I'll link to up here. For those of you who are up for the challenge, let's take this riff apart. If you're interested, you can get the tab for the entire song, not just the riff that we're doing in this video, in the description. We're going to be in drop D tuning for this, which means we're tuning our low E string down a whole step to D. We're also going to have a capo on the 4th fret, although just like any other capoed song, you can play this without the capo using all the same chord shapes and fingerings, you just won't be in the same key as the recording. However, this riff does require some pretty big stretches, and without the capo, those stretches will feel even bigger because you'll be making them on the lower frets, which are spaced further apart. So it is easier to play this with the capo. This riff is built on 2 chords, D major and A13. Our thumb, our P finger, is going to be in charge of playing the lowest 3 strings, so low D, A, and regular D. Our index, or I finger, is in charge of the G string. Our middle, or M finger, is in charge of the B string, and our ring, or A finger, plays the high E string. We start out on the D chord for 4 measures, and this is our chord shape. 3rd finger on the 4th fret of the D string, 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, 2nd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and 4th finger on the 5th fret of the high E string. If you've ever done any Travis picking, you'll know that it's based on an alternating bass pattern played with the thumb. For the D chord, we have a 3-string, 4-note pattern. Low D string, regular D string, A string, and back to the regular D string. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 note per beat. So that thumb pattern stays consistent throughout the whole D chord. What changes from measure to measure for our right hand is what these other 3 fingers are doing. And in measure 1, those fingers aren't doing a whole lot. In fact, we're not even using our A finger in this measure. All we're doing is adding these 2 fingers on the 2nd beat and this finger on the 4th beat. That's it. So our right hand pattern for measure 1 is P, P-I-M, P, P-M. Because we're not hitting the high E string in this measure, we don't need to be fretting that string with our 4th finger, so we can just relax this finger, which makes this chord shape a little easier to play. So with our left hand in measure 1, there's one little embellishment, and it's on the 4th beat. What we're going to do is when we get to that 4 count, we're actually going to lift up our 2nd and 3rd fingers and bar the 2nd fret so that we get this, which is basically an A major shape. Then we do a hammer on with each finger back up to our D major shape. So. And then one other subtle thing about measure 1 is that beat 2 is played staccato. Staccato means you cut the note off a bit early, so the way we're going to do that is by releasing the pressure on the strings with our left hand. So for measure 1 we have... For the 2nd measure, we're just holding the chord and letting our right hand do all the work. So no fancy left hand stuff on this one, although we do now need to place our 4th finger on the high E string. Our thumb is still doing that 4-beat pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4. But on this measure, the rest of our fingers are doing a lot more work than they did in the first measure. The pattern those fingers are doing is I, A, M, I, A, M, I. It's basically a 3-note pattern that repeats 2 1/3 times. I, A, M, I, A, M, I. So our thumb is playing quarter notes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Our fingers in this measure are playing 1/8 notes, so 2 finger notes for every 1 thumb note. And our finger pattern starts in between the 1st and 2nd thumb notes. So this is what it looks like when we put all that together. If you're struggling to put that whole pattern together, just break it in half and practice the first 4 notes by themselves. Then practice the second half by itself. Once you can do both halves separately, then combine them into the whole pattern. Measure 3 is very similar to measure 1, it's just the embellishments that are a little different. This time, after we hit the D, G, and B strings on beat 2, we do a pull off with our 2nd and 3rd fingers to the 2nd fret, which means we already need to have our bar in place when we get to beat 2. So So it's kind of the reverse of that hammer-on move we saw in the first measure. Then on beat 4, where it's just the D and B strings together, we slide up to the 5th fret on both of those strings. So measure 3 altogether is... Measure 4 is almost exactly the same as measure 2, with a couple small differences. The first difference is that we hit the B string on the first beat, along with the low D string, and the second difference is that we don't hit the G string at the very end of the measure. So this is what the 4th measure sounds like. At this point, we're halfway through the riff, and this is what we have so far. The second half of this riff starts with our A13 chord, which is where that stretch I mentioned earlier comes in. We're barring the top 3 strings on the 2nd fret, and then we're fretting the 5th fret of the D and B strings with our 3rd and 4th fingers respectively. The good news about this chord, if there is any, is that there are no embellishments. We're just holding the chord for 2 solid measures. As far as the right hand goes, our thumb changes to a 2-note pattern for this chord, just jumping back and forth between the A and D strings. Our other fingers are doing a 3-note pattern, A, M, I, and that starts right away on the first beat. Put those together, and this is what you get. Now, just a warning, this right hand pattern is tricky. This is probably the hardest part of the riff for me to get comfortable with, and I found myself tripping over my fingers a lot as I tried to get this up to speed. So again, just like we talked about in measure 2, if you find yourself struggling here, break it down into smaller chunks. I recommend practicing it in 4 separate 4-note sections. The first one would be this, starting with the A finger. The second one would start with the M finger. Third one would start with the I finger. And the 4th one's actually the same as the first one, so starting with A again. After that, we're back on D major with the same 4-note thumb pattern, but a completely different finger pattern, and yet another embellishment for the left hand. There's kind of a lot going on in this measure, so I'm going to walk you through it little by little. The first 3 notes are actually pretty straightforward. It's just... So P and M, I, and P by itself. Then we move up to the 5th fret on the D and B strings, and we hit those strings with I and A respectively. So we're getting out of position with our right hand here, meaning we're straying from the strings that these fingers were assigned to. Not a big deal, just worth noticing. So for the first half of this measure, we have... Then we slide up to the 7th fret with both of those strings and hit the A string with our thumb. Then we move back down to the 5th fret and hit both of those strings again, but this time we're back in position with our right hand using P and M. Both of those pairs of notes, both on the 7th fret and back on the 5th fret, are staccato, so we're going to use the same technique we learned earlier, where we release the pressure with our left hand to cut those notes a little short. So to recap this measure, we have the first 3 notes, then I and A on the D and B strings while moving up to the 5th fret, slide up to the 7th fret while hitting the open A string, and that's a staccato note, and finally back to the 5th fret with P and M, which is also staccato. One more time, all together. And finally, we have the last measure of the riff. No embellishments on this one. We're just holding the D chord with our left hand, which means all we have to do is learn one more right hand pattern. Our thumb is still doing that same 4-beat pattern, so all we have to focus on is what these fingers are doing. On the first beat of this measure, we get out of position one more time with I and A, moving them down to the D and B strings again, so we have that on beat 1. After that, our right hand gets back into position, and for the rest of the measure, we're just trading off between thumb notes and finger notes. And the sequence for our fingers is A, I, M. So here's what I mean. We have beat 1, where I and A get out of position. Then we just trade off. P, A, P, I, P, M. Simple as that. So the whole measure is... All right, once you're comfortable with the technique, and there is a lot of it, so it might take a while, you can start working on rhythm. Now the term rhythm, the way I'm using it, is different from tempo. Rhythm simply means counting beats as you play, but still giving yourself time to pause and think about stuff when you need to, rather than trying to stick to a steady pace. This is important because our main goal is to play this correctly, so we want to be careful not to rush through it because that'll cause us to make a bunch of mistakes. So I'm going to demonstrate this, and notice how even though I'm counting, I'm not keeping a strict tempo. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Once the counting and playing starts to flow pretty naturally, then you can add the metronome and tighten everything up to a strict tempo, and that's when things really start to sound good. We're in the key of D major here, as is often the case when in drop D tuning, which means our chord progression is a 1-5-1. The voicing for our D chord is kind of based on a C caged shape, meaning we're taking a fragment of the open C shape and moving it up a couple frets to turn it into a D. We have a D on the 6th string, A on the 5th string, F sharp on the 4th string, another A on the 3rd string, another D on the 2nd string, and yet another A on the 1st string. Our 2 Ds are root notes, our F sharp is a 3rd, 1, 2, 3, and our A's are 5ths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For the A13 chord, we still have the 2 A's on the 5th and 3rd strings, a G on the 4th string, an E on the 2nd string, and an F sharp on the 1st string. The A's in this chord are root notes. The G on the D string is a 7th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The E on the B string is a 5th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the F sharp on the high E string is a 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Although in this case, we're calling it a 13th for reasons that would probably take too long to fully explain in this lesson. If you're interested in deeper explanations of all this theory stuff, you can find dedicated technique and theory lessons at my website, newversemethod.com. The main scale patterns that are being used here are a 4th finger major scale starting on the A string, followed by a partial 2nd finger pattern starting on the B string. And for the 2 open strings, we can use this kind of altered 1st finger pattern to account for the detuned 6th string. So for the D chord, our scale degrees and our chord tones are going to line up. In other words, because D is our 1 chord, the root notes are going to be scale degree 1s, the 3rds are going to be scale degree 3s, and the 5ths are going to be scale degree 5s. For the embellishment notes that we use on the D chord, the E and G on the D string are scale degrees 2, 1, 2, and 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the C sharp and E that we use on the B string are scale degrees 7 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2. For the A13 chord, because it's a 5 chord, the scale degrees and the chord tones don't line up. The A's that we have on the A and G strings are scale degree 5s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The G on the D string is a scale degree 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. The E on the B string is a scale degree 2, 1, 2, and the F sharp on the high E string is a scale degree 3, 1, 2, 3. When people talk about great guitarists, Lindsey Buckingham often gets left out of the conversation because he's not a flashy player. He doesn't play a lot of crazy fast solos or anything. But in my opinion, he is absolutely one of the greatest guitarists of his era because his playing is so unique and so complex, but at the same time so understated. Everything that he plays serves the song. He doesn't play stuff just to sound impressive. He plays stuff because it works in the song and it has an emotional impact. And to me, that's way more important than playing a million notes a second. Now, I'm not disparaging those guitarists who are more acrobatic on the instrument. That's cool in its own right. But personally, I'd much rather listen to a guitar part that contributes to the overall musicality of the song in an inventive and interesting way than listen to yet another shredder play super fast notes that don't convey any emotion. Real quick before we get to the demos, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel, and if you have any requests for what song I do next, you can leave those in the comments.